Hey, good morning and welcome to Stone Ridge Confab. Great to have you here. If you are a regular participant, you will notice that I am not Scott Frappier. I am Marcus Haug, pre-sales architect here at Stone Ridge. I participated in several confabs, actually from the beginning with Scott, but today Scott has handed me the reins. Um, may or may not happen again. We'll see. Scott has passed me the reins for today. Lesson one in hosting any live event is never hand the microphone to the guest because you lose control of that. As long as you hang on to the microphone, you can always pull it back. So Scott handed me the microphone, and I guess he walked off stage today. So today, the stage is mine. The next hour is mine. Great to have you with us. And because it's my hour, we're going to talk about my favorite Microsoft product, and that would be Dynamics 365 Business Central. So glad you're here. Hope you are ready to go today. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping things. So for those of you that don't know, there's actually a lot of work that goes behind the scenes to make this stream happen. So thank you to Scott Frappier to set it all up, get it happen. We've transitioned that over to my system so that I can control that today. Fingers crossed it's going to work okay. Couple things you're not going to see or hear today. We don't have music going, sorry. So if you've liked the music in the past, too bad. You're going to be without it today. The second thing is I'm going to do my best to watch the chat. There's lots going on to make that happen. So I love the chat. I see that people are chatting. So I'm going to do my best to watch those and keep that connected. But we'll see how that goes. So kudos to Scott. If you know Scott, Scott's a very intelligent guy. Again, thank you to Scott for putting this all together. So forgive me ahead of time if we do have technical issues. Again, I'm going to do my best to keep those things and to keep us on track today. So welcome to all of you on chat. Sorry, yep, no music, too bad. Yeah, you look forward to hearing from me today. We'll see if I get invited back as a special guest or a host guest in the future. So anyway, let's dig in a little bit. We set up the session initially to really look at Business Central, sort of manufacturing specific, and I thought I'd actually back this up a little bit. Scott, the last several confabs, he's dug deep into Copilot, AI, all that sort of stuff. And I know you reviewed some of that. Thank you to Eric. He was here with the Wave release maybe a month or so back, talking about new features in Business Central. And I wanted to actually take us back there. I think Microsoft is doing they're adding some feature functionality to Business Central from that AI Copilot standpoint that are actually very interesting to me. I think the initial releases were interesting, but I think there's actually some real usable functionality here today. So I want to highlight that again, and let's look at that, and then we'll talk some about manufacturing as well. But again, Business Central is it's my favorite product for Microsoft. So hopefully you learned something today and sparks your interest around it as well. So let's spend the rest of our time in the product. So looking at Business Central here, this is the current release. So Microsoft has added Copilot throughout, and I think one of the nice pieces is this Copilot right here on the desktop. And the Copilot on the desktop really allows you to search, I would say, native documentation of the product. So we're looking at what's available online, but it's primarily that standard documentation for Microsoft. So I can ask, how do I do something? How do I set up something? I really like this explain guide. So if you wanted to know, how do I send a customer a statement, for example, I can ask that really how-to type question, and Copilot is gonna look at the documentation, and yeah, there we go. So it's gonna give me step-by-step instructions on really how to do something. So if you think about initial user adoption, but I often think about that feature functionality that you may not use on a real regular basis, and I'm not real confident that I know how something works out of the system. I can just use Copilot to find that information. I can also search my data. So if I say, which customers have a current balance, and I'm learning that I cannot type and talk at the same time. So I'm going to ask questions about my data. And you're going to get a result set back here. What Microsoft is adding here is the ability to actually look at the data that's included with extensions, third-party products that have been added to the application. So it's not just limited to native Business Central data. So I think that's awesome. I think the ability to query your data, ask questions about your data set, that sort of thing, is really powerful. What I've noticed about both of these features as they're in Business Central. So I'm gonna, I'm couching not just sort of Copilot in general, but I'm looking at how these features have been entered or created and used in Business Central. I've noticed the speed is greatly improved with this version. So it's not instant by any means, but I think it's at a pace, and the response now is at a pace that is really usable in the application. So, if you're a current user of BC, you've got the little Copilot button up there. You should be able to just drop in there and take a look at that. All right. In this release as well, what you notice on master records, and if I pull up a customer record here and I open it up, what we've got now is the ability to look at this record summary. So if you're familiar with Dynamics, the sales applications, you've had something very similar to this for a couple releases now. So I want a summary of the account, or I want the activity, what's going on with this account, that sort of thing. So I can get that summary that shows up. So Microsoft has now added this throughout the application. And I don't have a lot of data, so it's a little hard to tell really exactly what you're going to get here. But I think this is fascinating when you think about being able to pull up, let's say, a customer record. So there it is on the customer. But if I even pull up something like, let's take a vendor record, and I want to, I'm a purchasing agent, a payables person, something like that, I can pull up and I can see a summary of my customer and vendor. So I go, yeah, that's interesting. I think it's usable, sort of analogous to what we've got, again, on the CRM side. What's really been fascinating to me is actually where this is all showing up. So if you think about an inventory item, for example, and I pull up just, there's my normal Athens desk, standard demo data, and I've got summary available here. So it's really across all these master records where I'm able to get a summary. And I think this is interesting because now I'm looking at, a couple times I've run this, it's actually looked at like margin information around the item. So not just information that you could sort of get if you looked at the record itself. Like the first one is, it's not blocked for sales, and I've got 22, units on hand. Interesting data. When you're able to actually have the volume of data, let's say in this system, where you're able to get, I think margin information on the item is one thing that I had seen. That's pretty interesting, and I think that's starting to get some real usable, relevant information as you look through the system. Okay. Microsoft didn't stop there. So even when you start looking at maybe lesser implemented areas of the application, so let's take projects, for example, we have got summary on projects even. So as you dig into the application, it's not limited to customers, vendors, items, project card, getting summary information. I think this could be really useful if you're thinking about as a project manager, all that sort of stuff, and I want a summary of my entire project. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool information, right? Transactional basis. So if we look at a sales order and I pull up a sales order, I also have summary information. So if you think about as a salesperson, it's also on the purchasing side. So your purchase orders have summary information. I'm getting relevant data information about the customer, about this order. I noticed there's information about the items sometimes that show up here, that will show up in that summary record. Again, here's that, adjusted profit information on the sales order. I think this is real relevant data now that's available, again, using Copilot functionality inside of Business Central. So I'm excited about that personally. I think it's pretty interesting. We even go down as far as if we take a released production order itself and I open up a released production order, I'm getting summary data there. So it's really pervasive, if you will. It's set up installed, it's working throughout the application. What I really like about this is it's not limited to those master records. So again, summary information all over the place. I think this is pretty cool. I hope you're taking a look at it. I hope you're getting some useful information out of it. Next thing, really in terms of Copilot, I wanted to just talk through a couple of places that Microsoft has added Copilot functionality. And I want to start and actually look at suggest sales lines. So if you think about really the use case here, if I'm entering a sales order and I want to, put some sort of description regarding the items that I'm looking for, regarding information that I'm looking for, or maybe I want to pull up, what the customer has ordered before, all that sort of stuff that I could do here within Copilot and really get a suggestion of sales order lines that could be entered onto the sales order. So I think long term, when you think about the ability to create transactions using Copilot, so not thinking just about sales orders themselves, but if you think about purchase orders, if you think about inventory movements, all of those types of transactions where you could actually leverage a Copilot component inside of Business Central, I think that's fascinating. The other example that Microsoft has put together is suggest lines from a file. So really the use case here would be, your customer sends you a file that contains item information that they want to order. And instead of opening up that file and trying to match it, etc., what I can actually do is leverage Copilot here, take that file, drop it in here. Copilot then is going to look at the information in that file and then create sales order lines. I think through, the application here, I think through journal entries. I get asked all the time, I want to be able to upload journal entries into Business Central. Okay, there's utilities to do that. But, generally you're looking at a specific file format. It's probably an Excel file, which may not be that big of a deal to most people, but I've got some sort of setup or prep that I need to do with that file before I can just upload it. If you think about leveraging something like Copilot where, I may or may not have the columns in the right order. Maybe I've got or journal entry descriptions versus numbers, all those sorts of variables that potentially could be in my data set. Leveraging a tool like Copilot to bring those journal entries in. Think about ease of use and all that sort of stuff. I think that's pretty powerful. So applicable here on a sales order line, but think about really those other use cases that you could have for a tool like this. I think that's pretty powerful, powerful information, powerful data. A couple other places that you're probably familiar with where we're using Copilot. So if I pull up an inventory item, I've got the ability to really leverage Copilot in setting up some marketing text here. What you're really seeing with that is the ability to take attributes of an inventory item, for example, and construct meaningful text regarding those data points. So let's think about it that way. So if you think about all the other places that I could use descriptive text or a narrative regarding my data, right? So if you think about maybe a tool like this where I look at my income statement and do I want some sort of narrative coming off of my income statement in another report or something like that. Think about ways that text, usable text, could be derived from information. So that's what I think about in this case. This is interesting, if you're publishing your items to a storefront or something like that, and you want nicer text. That's great to do that sort of stuff. But thinking beyond sort of this example that Microsoft gives us here, I think there could be a lot that could be done with that. Bank reconciliation, this one's been here a while. I think this is actually a really usable example of Copilot. But again, you think about, data matches. You think about connecting data sets together. You think about being able to import data using Copilot. That's pretty powerful. Bank reconciliation, I think, is really usable, particularly for maybe organizations that have, maybe one deposit that's comprised of multiple checks or something like that. Being able to nuance some of that information out could be pretty useful. So chat's dried up, so I'm able to actually see chat here. So I don't know if there's other uses that people think about Copilot or sort of what you think about what Microsoft has delivered so far. I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of excited about those components. The next thing I did is I actually wanted to take and build out an example myself. So what I did is I actually used Copilot Studio. And with Copilot Studio, what I did is I created essentially a Teams app using Copilot Studio. And what I did in this example is I sort of recreated the bot question or the Copilot question on the main role center of Business Central. So if I'm asking how to do something or how to navigate the system or whatever, I sort of replicated that using Copilot Studio. And the nuanced difference here is I'm taking base Business Central information, but I also connected it to the Yavion help documentation. So Yavion, one of the ISVs we work with on the Business Central side, talking about batch manufacturing, they got a whole bunch of modules that are available. What I wanted to do is to create this how-to or this guide essentially inside of a Teams channel. So if you wanted to know information about something, again, I could use a prompt in here. So, what I did is I said, how do I get the system to automatically create an inspection order? So that was the question I asked. And what I ended up with is an answer that was drawn from the Yavion help information. So I, as an end user, didn't have to search the BC guide and go, oh, that's not a BC feature, I can't find anything. Now I got to go find the Yavion information, right? I don't need to do that. I could pull both of those data sets essentially together, and I can start asking questions. And the Copilot is smart enough to know, well, is this information related to documentation inside of the standard Business Central data set, or is it actually documentation related to the Yavion? It doesn't tell me that it did that decision tree, obviously, but what you'll notice is that when I ask about a customer statement, I'm getting how-to information, which is really a replication of that, or actually it's pulled out of the documentation for Microsoft. But at the same time, I can get information out of that Yavion help if I wanted to as well. So if you think about a scenario where I've got multiple different extensions, different add-on products into my Business Central environment, I can now very easily create a help system, if you will, that will allow me to search all of those relevant documents to get what I want. Again, instead of trying to hunt and peck across here, given the way that extensions are installed inside of Business Central, I think sometimes end users don't know, is this an extension? Is it Business Central? They don't care. Looking at it this way, I can actually get help from wherever I need to. So I don't need to know or understand those distinctions. I can just ask a question and I can get that data set. So I think this is pretty cool. If you think about taking this guide now and let's say pointing it at implementation documentation. So we're piloting that with a client, so that they can now ask help from the base documentation. They can ask help or get help from the ISV, the extension documentation. But I could also actually search all of those project implementation documentations about your specific implementation now. How did a particular feature get implemented or something like that? I can now get access to that all in one place. So think about really the usability of this, the speed, the ease in which I can get information and data out of the system. So I think this is pretty cool. The next thing I'm working on is actually a data query component inside of Teams. So I've started working on it so I can actually ask questions about my Business Central data as well. So maybe if I'm invited back, I can show you something like that. All right, let's. I'm back in Teams again. I'm looking at my other stuff here. So you're familiar with Edit in Excel, pretty cool feature. You're familiar with Business Central and Outlook. So when we talk about the M365 integration points, I think those are fabulous. I want to go back into Teams though, and I'm really trying to think through it, at least when we talk to clients and prospects about how can I really leverage the full platform in terms of ease of use, access to information, all those types of things. So I actually built this out, and this is leveraging a couple of applications, if you will. So we're leveraging Power Automate with Business Central. So if you're not familiar with Power Automate, part of the Power Platform, first use case, I think a lot of Business Central users, if you're using PowerPoint, probably you're using it for workflow approvals. Pretty powerful, great application. I'm not going to actually go into that anymore, but if you go into Power Automate, there are workflow templates that you can point to your Business Central system, basically replacing the built-in approval workflows that are in Business Central. I always think of them as two different tools in a tool belt. There's areas where the built-in workflows are maybe nicer than the Power Automate workflows. There's areas where the Power Automate workflows might be better than the Business Central workflows. So I'm not really getting prescriptive in terms of which tool you'd use, but just know that you've got both of those available. Anyway, not going to talk about workflow anymore. Let's talk about alerts. So I often get asked, how do we create alerts in the system? How do we monitor for those exceptions? How do we, that sort of information? And Microsoft has added a bunch of templates in the Power Automate tool set that connect to Business Central natively that will show you how to do that. So alerts is a big one. So this is actually an inspection order. So again, looking at the Yavion add-on, we've got inspections there. This is not based Business Central. And what I did is I just, I had to tweak the native API in Business Central just to expose the inspection order table, if you will. So not super complicated. I'm not a developer, and I can do that. So pretty straightforward in terms of how to do that. Then I can use Power Automate to actually monitor the change or monitor that record set. So what I did is I set this up so that when an inspection order is created, I trigger an event. And what I do in the event is I'm actually posting. So I'm posting to the feed inside of, and I created a quality team. So really the scenario here is I'm in the quality department. I'm not sitting inside of Business Central all the time, right? I'm in other applications. So what I wanted, and actually the request was, I need a way to notify essentially my quality team that there's something for them to do. And I said, well, let's just post to a Teams channel. So if you're in Teams, I'm going to post to a Teams channel, and I'm going to notify the user that an inspection order has been created. So this in essence is live and it's immediate. So the process or the scenario would be on a purchase receipt, and I've set up Business Central to do this. On a purchase receipt, I require an inspection when I receive smoked paprika. So did a warehouse receipt, I processed and I posted the warehouse receipt. At the time that happens, an inspection order is automatically created inside of Business Central, again using the Yavion extension. And what I'm doing then is when that inspection order is created, I'm posting to a Teams channel. And what I did is I leveraged really that Power Automate workflow to dynamically create the post. So I thought, well, what information would be relevant to somebody in the quality department? Well, I want to know what the inspection order number is. I want to know the item that I need to inspect. So there's the item number in the description. I want to know where it came from. So this happens to be a purchase receipt transaction. I got some source documentation in there. It gives me the record number and the line number, tells me what the status is, tells me the lot number that I need to inspect. Really what we're able to do is to capture any of those data elements that are on that record and just directly pass them to this. So very easy to take that standard trigger Power Automate workflow and then just redirect it to a different data source and then dynamically create the post, if you will. The other thing I did is I created these buttons down here, which are actually direct links back into Business Central. So one of my pet peeves of all applications is, when I need to go into our CRM system, and this is just me, we go to our CRM system, I gotta go find the link to our CRM system. So it's on my desktop and I double click on it, then I open it up. Now I want to look up a particular opportunity that's in the system. So I got to do a search for the opportunity, or I have to search for the account. And needless to say, I spell it wrong because I'm not a great speller, so I spell it wrong. I can't find it. All that, what I find extremely tedious work in trying to get to the data that I want to get to. Right? It's in the system, but I'm trying to navigate to it. What I like about this, and again, I created it, so I think it's amazing, but what I like about this is I don't need to do any of that as an end user. So if I'm in the quality department and I want to go into the inspection order, we've dynamically created the link. So if I just hover over that, so that's the dynamic link back to the specific record in Business Central. So what I've done is I've eliminated the need to go find where my Business Central link is. I don't have to go look up the record. I don't have to remember, well, this is inspection number 20. Doesn't matter. I click on that. It's going to take me directly, open up Business Central, single sign-on, all connected to your Enter ID, takes you right to that inspection record. And now I can actually just do the work that I need to do. So I think it's a huge time saver. I love this type of thing. Then I said, well, there's other records that you may want to see. Well, maybe I want to go to the item card and look up the item for some reason. Maybe I want to look up the item, the summary table, right? That's going to show me all the lot numbers, where they're located, etc. Well, I can take a direct link to that. So the example here, though, is really leveraging Power Automate in such a way to make my life as an end user much easier, more straightforward, more direct. Okay, so eliminating navigation, I think, is a big deal. So personally, navigation drives me crazy. I know search windows work and all that sort of stuff. They work fine, but being able just to get to the records directly as I need to, that's a big win for me. Also with Business Central, we can create channels. And what this does is it actually is going to take me, and I have to log in because I am using I have a demo system, so normally you wouldn't get this. I have to log in twice. So what this does is it's going to take me directly to of course something went wrong. It's going to take me directly to the records that I want to present to the users. So once again, thinking about a team, I got a quality team, what records would they want regular access to, or what pages, let's say inside of Business Central, would they want regular access to? So maybe I want to go directly again to the item list. I want to go directly to the inventory summary records. I can help my users by providing those direct links inside of Teams. So I think there's so much that can be done in Teams to really make life easier for end users, and Business Central, connects to all of this, which I just think is great. There are other really, let's say, alerts that are in the system that you can leverage. So for example, as an end user, maybe you want to monitor, maybe it's a salesperson, right? And you want to know when is a particular shipment being processed. So you could go in and actually set up an alert to monitor a specific record if you wanted to. So again, you're waiting conditionally for something to happen to that record, and I just want to know about it. If you think about, and almost every client I've worked with, when a particular record or something happens in the system, I need to let all sorts of people know. And, you forget about it, someone gets left the list, that sort of thing. Being able to set up these automated alerts, one, it's easier because I don't now have to go email the salesperson that say, hey, we finally shipped this order. So I don't have to remember to do that. I don't have to set it up, but it's also timely. Maybe I wait a couple hours and then, it's afternoon, and I forgot to send an email to Linda to tell her that the order's been shipped. So it's timely. I don't have to do anything with it. So I think alerts are a great option with using and leveraging Power Automate inside of Business Central. So hopefully you got some ideas. If you've got ideas or thoughts, I'd love to hear them. I think these are fascinating. I have done things with even budget tracking. So I've worked with some clients using Power Automate tools to look at, are we over under budget in places. So maybe you get an alert, and those are more timed versus, let's say, instantaneous. But maybe you want to report at the end of the day where GL accounts have gone over budget. If you think about our nonprofit clients, Syllogist, great add-on that we use with a lot of our nonprofit clients inside of Business Central, does fund accounting. They have some built-in budget alerts, and you could actually leverage a Power Automate tool against a tool like that. So when an item goes over budget, you could leverage Power Automate to send some alerts that way too. So I think that's fun. I think it's interesting. I think it's pretty usable. Next thing I want to just talk about while we're here is we're going to pivot over to Power BI inside of Business Central. So Microsoft has released a whole bunch of apps that are available. And then by app, I mean really report set, if you will. So they've released sets of reports in Power BI for finance, AR, AP, cash, sales order, purchasing, This is the inventory one, manufacturing, projects, and service. I think that encompasses all of the different sets. So it's kind of by module or by functional area. And I'm showing you this inside of a Teams channel. I'll go into Business Central and show you those later too. But these are Power BI reports that Microsoft has delivered. They really sort of, this would be a big soft sell, if you will. Microsoft delivered this, I think, 2 releases ago, an initial set, and then they've updated it since. I don't know that they did a lot of publicity around this. So if you're a Business Central user, you may not even know this is there. But Microsoft released this functionality. And it's a whole bunch of Power BI reports. And I think it's a great starting point. What I've found with reports as I've implemented is, I can create the best report in the world. And, the first client I show it to, they go, yeah, but you forgot sort of this, this, and this. What I found is really almost every organization wants some sort of difference to whatever standard report is in the system. So you could have hundreds of reports in the system, but you want to tweak them a little bit. So you can do that with the Power BI reports if you wanted to. Just know that that can be done too. We certainly can help you create new reports. We got some amazing people in our data team that work with Business Central that can create reports for you as well if you want to. But again, Business Central reports, these are the standard ones. I think Microsoft has done, I'd give them a solid B on this, my opinion. I think they've done a good job hitting really the high points of the reports. I think visually the reports look really nice. They've done some nice things with, I don't know, if you're not a fan of the standard Business Central colors, you may not think this is awesome, but they've really matched, if you will, the color schemes inside of Business Central. So they don't feel like external reports, if you will. They really feel like integrated components that are just built into Business Central. So again, I like them. I think they've done a pretty good job with them. So if you haven't looked at them, check them out. Again, like if I go to finance, for example, and I just posted these into my Teams channel, but you go to finance, there's a finance app, inventory, projects. I kind of went through that before, but there's a whole series of them. There's a series of tabs at the bottom. There are some configuration pages inside of Business Central to make this work. So you're sort of pre-configuring, let's say, start and end dates or number of periods. It kind of depends what the report is, but that's your broad configuration that you're going to do on these report sets. And then they're available. So I think this is cool. I think this is pretty interesting functionality that Microsoft has added. And again, you may have missed it. I really think they kind of did a soft sell on that, on the functionality and on the Business Central reports themselves. I should point out, if you haven't looked at the help documentation around the reporting that's inside of Business Central lately, I'd encourage you to look at that. So last time I was at a Microsoft conference, the person that's in charge of really the reporting elements within Business Central, he did a presentation, and they've really thought through how the documentation around reports in Microsoft Business Central is presented. So they sort of just they rewrote the documentation, or I should say represented the documentation more around the role within an organization. So he walked us through like the sales module. So if you look at sales orders and sales invoices, that sort of thing, what reports are available there? Business Central has hundreds of reports, but which ones and when would I use them and why would I use them? So they did sort of a role-based rewrite on the documentation. So if you take a sales manager, if you take a salesperson, if you take more of the accounting function to support the sales organization, if you think about the collection function, they did that. And then what they've got is identification of the reports that most often would be usable for that particular role, that job function. So I think they've done a nice job with it, actually. Instead of just saying, here's the report and this is sort of a description of it, most often, if you think about the job function and then eliminate all the reports that maybe don't fit that job function, look at the ones that are, and you're probably going to hone in on the reports that you want. I'm going to also guess you're going to find other reports that you didn't know were in the system. So that was their initial feedback, at least, is that people were getting a sense of really the breadth of reports that Business Central offers that they were unaware of. So check out that documentation. I think they've done a good job with it. Okay, let's look at, Power BI inside of Business Central. So what you'll notice throughout the application is you've got Power BI reports that are available. If you haven't done this, You've got the ability to select a report. The select report is not limited to those Microsoft provided Business Central reports. You can actually pick any Business Central report you want. So that's there. I did a blog post when Power BI was initially added to Business Central, so you could probably go search for it. And in that blog post, what I did is I showed how to pass variables between the page record that you're on and the Power BI report. So for example, fact boxes update based on the record you're on. So I go from a datum to, trade research, the fact box is updating. The Power BI report can actually update as well. So if you've got a Power BI report and I want to filter it to, in this case, a particular customer record, you could do that. So it's in a blog post someplace. I'm sure one of our team can maybe find it and post it in the chat, but that's there. So this is an example of just really that generic sales report. But again, as I said, you can filter it. You can expand these. So if you want to actually view the report, you can do that. It is the Power BI app running inside of Business Central. Really looks sort of the same way that I showed you inside of the Teams channel. You also can go to the Power BI app. Keeping in line or keeping in the theme of putting relevant data in the place where users want it. I like it inside of Business Central. I like it inside of a Teams channel. Personally, I don't like navigating over to Power BI app, finding my report. Same way I don't like navigating and trying to find my link to the CRM system. I love it inside of a Teams channel. So if I've got a report and it's in a Teams channel, I can just navigate to that channel, pull it up, open it up. I think that's the best way to do it. It's the easiest for me anyway in doing it. So just note that that's all options as well. Okay, let's transition a little bit more to, I want to talk about some pretty interesting functionality around agents at this point. Yeah, Rob, generate a link and send it to someone to save them headaches. I agree 100%. Telling somebody to go look it up, I don't want to look it up. I want a link, take me directly to the record and get me there. Okay, let's talk about agents. So a lot of conversation with Microsoft around sales order agents. Sorry, I was testing the last couple of days and I used up my quota, so ignore that error. But we've got agents available to us. And think about an agent as an assistant that can answer my questions, but also can perform tasks for me. Okay, so that's this example that we have now, and it's in preview, so it's actually available. If you're using Business Central, this is available for you to take a look at. But this is a sales order agent. And I'm going to walk you through what I did yesterday to sort of set up this demo. So the scenario would be you're a customer and I want information about a particular product. So what I did in this scenario is I actually sent an email over to my Kronos company, and I said I wanted information about an Athens desk. And what the agent did is, and I'm going to just open this up and walk us through this. So I get an email from, and I used my Gmail email box. So this is the scenario here. And I said, well, I've got an order request and I'd like to order an Athens desk. So pretty straightforward. And what the agent did is it actually read that email and it said, well, it looks like Marcus is actually set up in our system and he's interested in the Athens desk. So the agent, and I have it set up in this case to create a sales quote, created a sales quote for that item that the customer is looking for. And you notice that I said Athens desk. I didn't type in an item number. I didn't do any of that sort of stuff. So what it did is the agent then created a sales quote for me. I didn't have to do that. And then what they did is it actually emailed the sales quote then to my customer. So what it said is, Dear Marcus, thank you for your request. Here's the the detailed information. Find the attached sales quote. Confirm if you'd like to proceed with a sales order. I've got a salutation on there, and then I've attached actually a copy of the sales quote. So what the agent did is really, again, read the inbound email, identified that this is actually a customer, identified that they want to buy or are interested in a particular product. Then they sent an email response with a quote attached to it. What I did in the other scenario here is I actually took then the response from the sales quote. And I said, yeah, actually, I want to buy that product. what the agent did is it read it, and then it actually created a sales order. So it converted the quote to an order for me. So it did that workflow for you. So think about how an agent can take sort of that data, that input, validate it against the system, and then perform functions against that for me. So in this case, I tried to break it, and I did. I responded to the sales order, and I asked some. I forget exactly what I did. I asked some really weird question, and it didn't really know how to deal with that question. So then what it did is it actually just prompted me to say, hey, I've got a question from this customer. I don't know how to answer it. So now it goes back to me for human intervention, if you will, to sort of deal with that. So didn't know how to deal with 100% of stuff, but in this case, if it's a pretty straightforward order, it can do that. Another scenario I did, it was actually out of stock. So in this case, I think I wanted 2 items. It was one of them was out of stock, one of them was in stock. So what it did is it created a quote for the in stock item. In the email, then it said, unfortunately, the second item is out of stock. Let us know what you want to do with it. But it placed the sales order, the sales quote for that first item. So I think this is really interesting. Thinking through again, where else could you use an agent to aid the use of the application that you're working with? So inbound sales orders, maybe this can take care of, I don't know, 50, 60% of the orders that come in are fairly straightforward in your organization. I just want to create a sales order. Good. I'm out the door. Great to go. Service. You think about, service orders being created. I got an inbound service order. We got service management inside of BC. I want to auto create a service order. Done. I'm just thinking of all sorts of things that you could do with agents to help and really aid the use of the system. So this is the one that comes with Business Central today. Take a look at it if you're using sales orders. It's in preview now, so maybe use it in a sandbox environment and try it out. It didn't take me long to set it up and get it going, but that's a really initial look at what we can do with agents inside of Business Central. So I think that's pretty exciting. We'll see where we go from there. This is a little different than, let's say, that sales order line ad, right? So on the sales order line, this is not really an agent, right? This is using Copilot to put data into the system. So an agent would really be something more that I'm interacting with, if you will. So I'm asking questions, getting a response, but the agent can actually still perform functions within the organ or within the system as well. So I think this is fascinating. Where we're going, I think we're going to see huge advancement here. So hopefully that builds on what Scott has shown you before. But this is real agent application inside of Business Central. This is a development effort, so I shouldn't say effort. This is development work that needs to be done inside of Business Central to build the agent. So you're leveraging, you're leveraging Copilot Studio, you're leveraging Copilot, but it's done via an extension inside of Business Central. So Microsoft's got documentation on it, pretty straightforward documentation, if you will. Again, I'm not a developer. I can really sort of muddy my way through that. So shouldn't be overly difficult to make that work. So if you think about other agents inside of Business Central. So what I like about it is Microsoft has opened up that development ability to your team. So I think that's Rob. Sensor tells the temperature is too high, create an emergency call. Yep, that's a great example. You can monitor things outside of the system as well. So think about the sky's the limit on that. If I'm monitoring other systems or I'm monitoring other websites or data points, etc., that now could initiate things, I think that's great. I think through what you could do with quality systems. I think about what you could do with manufacturing systems with agents. Maybe I perform an inspection and there's something wrong with the product. Do I need to initiate a return to the vendor? Do I need to initiate communication to the vendor? Think about things like that. We've got add-ons for, let's say, safety data sheets and specifications around items. Some add-ons we got with the Avion as well. Maybe I've got a product spill and I want to initiate some sort of process in the system because of that. We work with a lot of food companies. Maybe I want an agent that would assist with recall. I've got a recall on a product. I need to send emails, I need to send notifications, I need to find where the product is. You think about all the stuff that has to happen regarding a food recall. Well, maybe that's a place that I could actually leverage an agent to help assist with that. You think about a spill of a chemical or a recall on a food product. Both of those are timely, right? I need to get on top of that. And if you think about an agent, and I needed at 6 p.m. on a Friday night, I got a food recall that I need to deal with. Maybe I can start that at that time, right? I can get in front of it. I don't need to call all these people in to do it, that sort of thing. I can just maybe initiate that with an agent, right? Carly, oh, hey, Carly found my embedded Power BI blog. Thank you. As far as I know, that's still relevant. So it may be, it's 2 years old. Holy cow. Might be old, but I think that's still relevant in terms of creating the pass-through filter, if you will. So based on the record you want, I want to update a Power BI report. So that blog post will show you how to do it. So thank you, Carly, for putting that into the system. All right. What I wanted to do, we touted this as a manufacturing piece. I wanted to put sort of those Copilot components, the agent components, sort of in a distribution manufacturing light. I know I didn't do an awesome job at that, but remember that Business Central is, I think, a very robust distribution and manufacturing system. So don't forget about the functionality that we have base Business Central components. There's a whole lot of stuff that we can do in here. If we think about a couple of things that we've added, what did we add? We added, deferral templates has been there a while. I don't see a lot of clients use this, so know that deferral templates are there. If you've got deferred expenses, deferred revenues, particularly around your inventory items, I think that's pretty robust. Remember, we've got replenishment policies and plans in place. So I can buy something. An assembly is a multi-layered or multi-level bill of material if I want to set up. So if I've got kits, I'm surprised at how many clients and prospects that I talk to really have kit requirements in their system. So remember, assemblies is there. So if you've got those kits, you want to store them, or you want to build the order, assemble the order, I should say, not build the order. Assemble the order, great functionality that's in the system. Full manufacturing with production orders. So if you talk about a multi-level bill of material and a routing, we've got you taken care of. So all that's available. The planning engine, pretty decent planning engine that's in the system. When you figure out, a mid-market product, the pretty robust planning system in here. Planning can be done by location. So working with a lot of clients now with multiple inventory locations. So if you've got 3PL locations, all that sort of stuff, those planning parameters can go down to the location level if you need them to. So again, if you've got minimum stock quantities, that sort of thing, or minimum order quantities may be more relevant, certainly can configure and add that into the planning engine. So awesome functionality around that. If you've missed it, Microsoft has made some changes around the location configuration regarding warehousing. And I'm not going to go into a lot of details around this, but just note that I've got some additional setup configurations that can be changed here. So if you're sort of either struggling with the level of warehouse management that you have, maybe you've got not enough or you've got too much, you might want to take a look at some of these configuration options that have been changed here. So the other thing that you've got is some integrations with projects around warehouse handling too. So if you've got projects with inventory, that sort of thing, Microsoft in the last couple of releases has added functionality there for you. So just take a look at this again if you're struggling either with too much or not enough sort of setup or transactions around your warehousing. Take a look at that. All right. So Rob asked a question: can Copilot look at the data and suggest to make changes based on new features? I'm thinking out loud on that one. Can Copilot look at the data and make changes based on new features? I suppose you could program Copilot to do that. So that would probably be taking Copilot Studio and looking at that data. Microsoft has added some components that look at forecasting. And again, this has been a while that it's been in the product, but they're using they're using some AI generated suggestions around forecasting here. I don't know that this is a robust forecasting system, so I don't want to over present the functionality here, but I think it's got some interesting possibilities around forecasting as well. So, that could be it. In terms of data, again, I'm thinking out loud, Rob. That the marketing text actually uses the item attribute setup, so you've got some ability to um, you've got some ability to feed variables, if you will, into Copilot, and then make changes there. Use Copilot to suggest changes to a forecast. Actually, I worked with Eric on this yesterday. There's a couple of suggestions that will actually, there's a couple extensions that will do that for you. So if you did have a need to update planning parameters, forecast, that sort of thing, maybe shoot Eric a note. Eric Vandenberg, he and I looked at that yesterday with an extension. So I know we could solve it if there's a need out there for that one too. All right, that's really the content I wanted to go through today. So I'm going to give you a couple more minutes. Everybody wants 5 minutes to use the restroom before your next meeting, so I'm going to give that to you today. Thanks to Scott for allowing me to drive today. So we'll see based on the reviews if I'm back or not. Maybe I'll be back as a guest, and maybe I'll be relegated to somewhere else. But we'll see. I think Scott's back in a couple weeks. I neglected to see what the topic was. So Carly, I think Carly and Leah, you were both on. I don't know if we've got the topic for next time, but I want to preview that. Pretty sure Scott will be back for next time. He had actually was meeting with some clients today, so he gets to do some fun stuff too. But I think he'll be back in a couple weeks. So if you've got other suggestions on things you'd want to have us tackle, shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you. And again, thanks for being here today. Hope you got some valuable information from today. So I will say best of luck to you. If you've got any questions on Business Central, I love a conversation. So let me know. Otherwise, have yourself a great rest of your day.